Hello and welcome to Sisumoi TV, episode 5. I'm Alexandra.
I'm Barbara.
And we are the founders of Sisumoi. And today we are featuring our friend Julianne Bond, 20-year successful broker of Triplemint in New York City, avid poetry fan and interviewee, and good friend that we've come into contact with recently. So we are thrilled to have you here today, Julianne. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so delighted.
We're delighted.
Guys are doing.
Yes, we are honored.
Yeah.
I met you, Julianne, with my family, with Alex and Bill, when you showed us the Dakota in New York in December. And, you know, we've learned that you are very multi-dimensional. You're not just a realtor, but you're also a poet enthusiast. You also have you deal with a cancer program that I think we'd be interested in hearing more about. And you know, you have a new show, 10 Minutes of Bonding, and you're reading poetry, also on Instagram and on Facebook. And you know, you just have so many interesting things that we would like to hear about today. So just tell us a little bit about how you got to the point that you are at today.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess as I was thinking about this and thinking about how did I get to this point, I think what I realized is I think I just have always had a tremendous curiosity about people, about just about things, the world. So I've always, from a pretty young age, just kind of thrown myself into what sometimes turned out to be the very deep end of the pool. And that was sometimes a little scary, and sometimes it was okay. You know, I'm from the Midwest. I moved to New York to go to school. I didn't know anybody in New York. It was just it was at a time when New York was not in great shape. But you know, I feel like it has always been that desire to keep learning, keep pushing, and to keep growing. That during these different times and through my different chapters of my life, I have found that even when there's been adversity, there was also so much opportunity. And I think like these times now feel like that to me, that, you know, there's so much, even as there is so much adversity and these are such uncertain times, I also feel like within that, there's a lot of opportunity to connect with people. You know, I do run my business, so that is my full-time focus, but I think the reason for the poetry readings is I'm also a poet and have published, but I don't really, I feel like my writing poetry is much more connected to my feeling about reading it and being in that kind of, there's a kind of a world that I think poets create that make it really, during these times, felt like a really good thing to be
Definitely
entering that world. I am a cancer survivor, and that is the cancer program Connection. I'm involved with a program called Woman to Woman. It's at Mount Sinai. It was a model program that's now been recreated in a lot of different hospitals all over the country. It's a peer group support system, mentoring. So it's for women who've been diagnosed with a gynecological cancer, and it, you know, so there are volunteers who are survivors like myself who, when someone is diagnosed with cancer and they're being treated, kind of matched with those women, and it's really extraordinary to be part of someone's journey like that. The program didn't exist when I was being treated, but it started a few years after. So Woman to Woman, this program and really no other program like this existed when I was being treated in 2003, but it started a few years later, and that's when I got involved with it. And it is really an extraordinary program, and it is a real lifeline for women who are going through that experience. So yeah, I think
that they have that, you know. And I love the point where, you know, you said that there's opportunity in challenge, and it's probably such a traumatic, horrific time that you went through, Julianne, and to connect with people on such a deep level, you know, is probably incredible relationships and teachings and growth that can happen with that too.
Yeah. Yeah, both ways, actually. I mean, there's a lot that I feel like I learned from the women that I work with, and I also feel like I think they get something initially that just has to do really with hope, because I realized that just someone who you know has been through it walks into the room and they look healthy and are okay. That's something that I think is just an unspoken kind of creates an unspoken kind of hope for the person who's, you know, being, you know, getting their chemo treatment, has just had their surgery, you know, lying in a hospital bed. So this is a program that's really, I mean, because it's a peer group in a way, it's different than talking to anybody else. It's different than talking to a medical professional, or, you know, it's also, I think, kind of nice for women because we always are taking care of everybody else, that it's nice I think for women when they're sick to feel like they have no obligation to take care of the person that they're talking to. It's not their mother, it's not their sister, their child, their husband. They may be feel a little more comfortable asking questions about what someone's experience was, and they don't feel like they have to really be protecting the other person.
Yeah,
those are to me like the two things that really stand out over the years, is that was the thing that I wasn't really expecting, but I think is actually at the heart of it.
Yeah, I think that sort of outlet, you know, especially as a mom, you know, you have to be strong and a hero for everybody all the time.
Sure.
And have that outlet. I think a lot of women don't have that, or they haven't prioritized that for themselves. And that's where honesty and growth comes. And but you really are a sisu leader to us, in that you've overcome these incredible challenges, and you've taken those experiences to now you're saying things like, when these happen, I see opportunity in them. And that's an evolved character to be able to see that, you know. And I think that's really special. And I think that's, you know, that unspoken hope. You start to see those things clearer when you've gone through some of these things, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I feel like that's something that I'm not really sure where that comes from. I think it's just my nature, honestly. But I think it also, this is kind of coming to mind. I also think it's a little bit fear driven. You know, whenever I've been really afraid, and I've certainly had those times in my life, whether it was something to do with my children or my own health, or some kind of financial, you know, fear of what was going on in our lives. I think the fear was in a way a very, very big motivator for me. And so I think now, though, I've grown accustomed to it. I can tolerate it better over the years. I think, you know, maybe that's just years of living. I think it's also going through a certain amount of adversity.
Yeah.
There starts to be a kind of a comfort around being afraid. Maybe that doesn't make any sense, but it's no longer the thing that, I'm trying to push away because I'm so anxious about being afraid, because nobody likes uncertainty. I mean, we're really living with that now. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of fears. And maybe that's where, confronted with that old familiar feeling of fear, I was like, well, there's got to be something to be done here. What can be done, and where should I be focusing my energy right now, and how do I keep my head on straight?
Right.
So I think that's a really big part of what's happening these days.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing for me, and I think it seems, as I ask other people, seems to be the hardest thing is to kind of keep your head on straight right now.
The balance. Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think with the fear, that you've had over the years, that we all have, that you can get through it. So you start to have confidence in you. You will protect you, and carry you through these times. And you're more comfortable with it when these.
I think so.
Yeah, because they do.
Like, oh, right. And like, oh, here's my old friend again.
Right.
Oh, Fear, you're back. Great. Nice to see you. What are we going to do now? What's on the plate now?
It's funny. You almost personify fear, give it a name.
I know.
The altar that walks into the room. Oh, here you are. I'm healing with you today. Let's do it. And kind of embracing it. Julianne, we've noticed how much you've sped up, at least from the outside. You've probably always been going a mile a minute, being a New Yorker, right in the center of everything in Manhattan, and, real estate 20 years and just killing it as a woman in business, building your team, your brokerage. I think that's so incredible. But, from the outside here, we've noticed you've launched 2 creative initiatives during COVID. And one is where you're giving a gift through poetry, where you read poetry on Instagram. And the other is through 10 minutes of bonding. You're a marketing genius on Julianne Bond, 10 minutes of bonding. So we think that, you mentioned that deep connection is, something that you've noticed as an opportunity here too. And we're kind of curious, what inspires you to do these creative initiatives? Where did this come from?
Well, that really is my background. I mean, that was how I spent a good part of my life, was in the creative world. So, I would say probably the first 20 years of my life, first 20 years of my adult life were really very much in the creative world, whether it was, I had a television show, I was a writer and a producer, and I played it was an animated show on Comedy Central, so I played one of the characters on there. And, oh, you didn't know? Yeah, I mean, that was, I'm a painter, I'm a writer, I'm not a painter like you, Barbara. You're a real painter in my opinion, but it was just, I just found myself always involved with something creative. Even raising my children felt like a real creative endeavor. I mean, it permeates everything that I touch. I bring a lot of that to my practice of real estate too, because, I see my role as a real estate broker really as an advisor and a protector of people's wealth and helping them to grow it. To me, it's a relationship, and it's a relationship built on trust. So it just happens that it's real estate. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But when I was confronted with really being unplugged from what I was used to being able to do, And I also was aware that I had this feeling of wanting to connect with people. I also felt like for the first time, I could really be kind of fully who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt like there was room for me in the world of New York City real estate to do 10 minutes of bonding or the poetry readings, or, it always felt like if I talk about this, people are going to get the wrong impression. Like I'm not interested in, I'm doing this on the side, right? Is what I was afraid people would think about that. And so given that so much rides on real estate transactions, I really never imagined that I would ever be leading with a lot of creative initiatives. But I think so, right. So that's where the opportunity, when I said, you've got all this adversity, but suddenly there's all this, there are these windows of opportunity, because everything was broken anyway, as far as I could tell. So it was like, oh, I get to just, okay, I'm used to, I'm not, this is not unfamiliar to me.
Right.
So I'm just gonna, I'm gonna just be myself and see what happens with that. There were also two other reasons. One was that I really, really wanted to connect with people. I was feeling, I think I had a sort of my own loneliness during that sheltering in, and it was, I was sensing that in other people. And I also felt like people were going through a really hard time emotionally. So for me, it was a way of both getting and giving comfort, and a way of offering connection and getting connections that I really wanted. So, yeah.
It's so important. And I love that you see yourself, you mentioned a guide. And I think that's really cool that, in times of, adversity, challenge, uncertainty, certain people step up as guides, and other people are looking for guides. And, I think most of us are looking for guides, and we all are, because it helps develop and grow and engage. But that's such a wisdom that I think, that you've kind of found there, that your role is as a guide, and whether it's real estate or whether it's something creative, it's, that you're kind of in partnership with your own gifts and in partnership with engaging others through those avenues. So I think that's really cool, Julianne. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about, and not quite sure how their skill set can be applied in relation to others beyond themselves.
Yeah. And if this had not happened, I don't think that I would have ever discovered that. It was, for me, at this point in my life, and I think I was kind of ready and open to it, to this kind of pivoting to integrate certain parts of myself in it, just to kind of bring those out into the light. But I also think that I am, as awful as this has been for and continues to be for so many people, and is just so, in its own way, like if you just look at what's going on in the world, there's a lot to be concerned about, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But I also feel like, for me, it has also been a tremendous gift, because I discovered this about myself, but it was only because it's so extreme. I mean, maybe that's what you're saying, Alex, is that, when things get this extreme, and they don't often get this extreme in such a like a global way, literally. People have extreme things happen to them in their lives. You've had them, I've had them. We're not alone. Lots of people have a lot of adversity. But to be going through it all at the same time, and in all different extremes, that's the thing that makes this time so extraordinary. And that's where I feel like, if it hadn't been like this, I don't know that I would have felt okay about creating these things. I don't know that I
Mhm.
thought, I think, I don't know that I would have thought there would have been an audience for it.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think it's wonderful that you've been able to give voice, literally, to these
Yeah.
things that you have. And, the poetry, I mean, you read poetry so beautifully.
You do.
No wonder you're a poet yourself.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
it makes sense now.
Yeah. I mean, I am always been really a fan of, oh gosh, I remember when I was growing up in Michigan, there was a guy named Dick Estelle in Michigan. He was at Michigan State, and he used to read on public radio, which was not such a big deal then. I mean, it was just like these weird public radio stations.
Yeah.
Like they really weren't, it wasn't a thing then. It was just it was a thing for some people, and they're
Right.
amazing now that I think about it. But he used to, every like lunchtime, he would always read, he would read a book, or he would read a chapter from a book, and so, and I just was so delighted by that. I used to love to listen to that as a kid. And then, so I think of the poetry that way. I just think it's like a comforting thing.
It is.
And that's what I'm trying for, because especially when I started, it did not feel like a comforting time at all. It felt like a scary time. Big time.
No, it really is. And I think it's so nice because you feel like you're you usually have your tea, and you feel like you're two girlfriends in a living room about to read something and connect together.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and it's a little gift, and it's like a short little moment where everything is still, ads and content and messaging.
Yeah.
I mean, the world slowed down, but the messaging is still there. So that's still a moment that's a little more in keeping with things have slowed down. Let's be present. And another thing I love that you said, Julianne, that I think is for people that are listening is so important is we're all going through something together. And a lot of times people look at, adversity of that's something that, Julianne's a survivor. That's something she went through. That's her unique experience, which, builds her character. But this is something that everybody is experiencing. And because of that, I'm seeing, and I don't know if this is, in New York has been through so much. So you could, I'd be curious to your thoughts on this, but I'm seeing people connect on a much deeper level, on a much kinder, more human level. And we joke about not smiling. And as you say, I'm smiling under your more warmth as people have slowed down. And I don't know, what's it like in New York?
I mean, there's definitely, look, it's as different as what I'm seeing is unique as to each person. What I will say is that I've formed much deeper connections with people like you guys. I mean, this is what an opportunity. That's what I mean about an opportunity, right?
That's right.
We were having conversations that were kind of on this level, and then it's just started to change. I think some people are really getting a lot out of this time, meaning they're forming they're just open and connecting, and it's bringing out their humanity and their leadership. I am also seeing people like really not handling it very well and kind of acting out and being weird. And I feel bad for them, honestly, because, when you're in that space, you probably feel pretty isolated in that space. And so you're really suffering. And I know when someone acts out, I really try to think about it that way. Wow, they must be really, really suffering right now. I don't know what it must be like in their head, but it must be bad because they're not rising to the occasion. They're sinking.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think showing empathy, helps with connection, you know, because we are
I do too.
and I think, you know, it's just, we're inspired with the way that you're giving selflessly through your own creative gifts, whether it's on social media or finding homes for people in this crazy time. I can imagine how stressful that is, you know, to have to relocate. But, you know, I think you really are shining in seeing things as opportunities. And, you know, I think that's why we wanted to feature part of your story today. And I wish we could go so much longer. There's so much more I want to know about it. But on like kind of level one of our interview, we literally we're grateful for your time, Julianne, because I think you are looking at the positive and seeing the opportunity and challenging yourself to sit with things and get closer to your gifts and use those to nurture others. And that is how much better would the world be if we all were doing that? And it's just a choice.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's a big part of your mission as well. It seems to me, you know, it was. So I just feel like this is. I'm very happy to talk with you about this because I feel like there's more. I agree that there should be more of it. You know, it would be nice if there was more of this kind of way of looking at the world. So yeah, it's kind of like baby steps, I guess, right? Start putting it out there and then see where it takes hold. And then it radiates out from that.
That's beautiful. We're almost starting poetry. All worded. Oh, well, Julianne, thank you so much for your time. I think that's a wonderful way to leave our viewers and listeners with that, you know, it radiates from there and it starts with you. And thank you for carrying the torch in New York, even while you're sheltering in place and while you're engaging and smiling under your mask. And thank you for being a Sisu leader, and we really are grateful for your time today. Yes, absolutely. Take care, Julianne. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Okay. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.